the value of studying key biblical terms in the target language. In the Bible, there are practices, ideas, concepts, and cultures that are not known in our cultures and languages today. Some of these practices, ideas, and concepts which have special significance are known as key biblical terms. The correct exegesis and translation of these terms is crucial for the communication and understanding of the message of the Bible. Banwell 2020 outlined 5 steps in translating key biblical terms as follows. 1. Study the meaning of the term. 2. Compare with similar words. 3. Write a list of possible solutions. 4. Choose the most appropriate. And 5. Test your choice. The focus in most cases is in the source or mediating language like English, and less to do with target language, with the assumption that since the translators are speakers of the language, once they understand the meaning in the source text, they will automatically know how to express it in the target language, which is not always the case. This paper argues that to achieve quality translation, it is also important to study the proposed term in the target language and compare it with other related words in order to choose the best for the translation. African languages have not been assigned significant role in Bible translation enterprise. Hence, words such as receptor, target language are used in reference to them. African target languages, being a natural language like English and others, have vital cognitive tools which can be useful for biblical studies and translation processes in Africa. Umboa 2018. Readers of texts interpret what they read from the point of view of their native language and culture. This allows translators to look at the meaning of the original text from a different perspective. Webster 2014 asserts, and I quote, "Every language equips its speakers with a particular set of cognitive tools for seeing and interpreting the world." End of quote. If this is true, then, like every other natural language, African receptor languages, including Yala, are good enough and can equip speakers to think or do theology or think about God with, like English or any other languages. We are claiming that studying key biblical terms in African languages is important and can improve the quality of Bible translation. This idea is not totally new, as the study of cultural anthropology was part of the translation program in the past, but is now relegated. In most cases in Africa, the study of key biblical terms has always been carried out in English with reference to the original text, while the receptor language plays a passive role. Commenting on the influence and power of English as a global language of science and tools for interpreting the world, Webster 2014 states, and I quote, "While English is a language of global significance, it is not a neutral instrument or one that, unlike other languages, carve nature at its joint, and that if this is not recognized, English can at times become a conceptual prison." End of quote. It is worthy to know that English is not a transparent language through which we can see the world. It carries with it hidden baggage of history and culture, and as such can obscure and shape meaning of the text. Key biblical terms are not always easy to translate adequately in some languages. A good translator endeavors to adjust and transfer source language key terms to the receptor language in a way that is meaningful to his audience. Otherwise, key terms used by the author in order to communicate certain truths or message clearly may end up losing their intended meaning and impact, or in some cases, obscuring the message. As earlier noted, Banwe 2020 outlined 5 steps in translating key biblical terms as follows. Study the meaning of the term, compare the term with similar words, write a list of possible solutions, choose the most appropriate, and test your choice. In the context in which I'm familiar, it appears that in practice, these steps are mainly carried out in the source language or in a mediating language like English, with less attention being given to the target language. Studying the terms in the target language can enhance the quality of translation. This can be achieved by studying the term or expression that are chosen as possible candidate or words that belong to the same semantic domains together to see what is best for the meaning of the term in the source text. Studying the 2 main terms that are used to translate pisteo, an important concept in John, into Yala, will show how this can lead to the best choice and enrich the quality of translation. The Yala New Testament was published by the Bible Society of Nigeria in 1979, and pisteo was translated in 3 different ways. Yala language is an Idomoid language, and according to Lewis and Crozier, is a member of the Benue Congo branch belonging to the Niger-Congo phylum. The 3 expressions that were used to translate pisteo in Yala are as follows. 1, che, which is to agree, accept, which occurs 56 times. And these are some of the references. Although not used only for pisteo, it was also used as verb to accept and sometimes as first verb in the serial verb construction to help the second verb. It is actually not easy to tell when it is used to mean pisteo. 2, cheku, which is a composite word, including che and ku, which means to agree with, accept with, take side with, and this occurs 70 times, and some of the references are listed. Mostly used to translate pisteo, but also used for other expressions like approver, follow, and receive in some contexts. 3, the expression dotuche, give heart place, or give heart place on, or place heart, occurs only 6 times in these references. The different expressions do not correspond to any pattern of the Greek expression. While the reason is not clear, it could be that the terms were not carefully studied in Yala to discover the inferences that are encouraged by each of them. A critical examination of the Yala John reveals that the choice of this expression was somewhat arbitrary and random, as there seemed to be no clear reason for the choice of one or the other in the context they are used. For example, pisteo in John 3:16 and John 6:35 has the same structure and possibly same meaning, but it is rendered differently as cheku and dotuchi, respectively, in Yala John. The choice may be influenced by the understanding of the English belief. All the 2 main Yala expressions were studied through an ethnographic interview with fluent Yala speakers of the language to determine what they understand by each of the terms and what comes to their mind when they hear each of the expressions. And the interview were recorded in Yala, transcribed, and stored in the database called toolbox, and they are coded as I will show in the data that follows. Based on the study of the expression in Yala, the expression Dotuche, place heart, is the better translation of pisteo. It implies strongly the notion of dependence, reliance, commitment, ongoing relationship that is permanent, and a part of the human that is involved. The notion of cheku, as we can see in the analysis, relate more to dispute and can be induced, and is misleading in the translation of pisteo. Comparing the two Yala expressions based on the analysis of the data collected in the interview, looking at some of the variables, the first variables is the level of commitment. For cheku, the commitment not necessarily much, and commitment in Dotuche is high and is total. And these are some of the direct words that those interviews said, and they are transcribed and translated into English to support these variables. The second variable is whether it is induced or voluntary. For cheku, it can be induced by money or gifts. Dotuche is voluntary. These are some of the data that are relevant to these variables. Another variable is dispute-related. Cheku mostly happen in a dispute-related event where choice is to be made from an alternative, where you have an option to choose from. Dotuche is non-dispute related. These are also data that people said that support these variables of dispute related versus non-dispute related as relate to the two expressions. Another one is temporal versus permanent. Cheku can be temporal. It can be for a purpose or for a cause. Why Dotuche is permanent until it is broken. These are some of the data that came from directly from those interviewed. And one of it, you said, you can see, you may agree facially, but not in heart. And it may be for a wrong cause, like you may agree with somebody for a wrong cause, like to kill or to steal. Here, it's not in the face or mouth, but it's with the heart and heart of heart for that matter. And this can happen all the time. Once the heart is placed on someone, it can happen all the time. It is consistent until it is broken, whereas it's not the case with cheku. Another variable is a kind of object. Only human, some may use it for God, that is our, but not for a checker, which is the word for idol. But Dotuche, its object can be human, it can be deity like God, another supernatural being, it can be your farm that your heart is placed on, it can be the work your heart is placed on. But then, if it is placed on the farm or work, the meaning will be slightly different. It will invoke the sense of commitment to farm work or the work you are doing, and not trust. Another variables which is important is it happens, whether it happens in relationship or not. For cheku, relationship is not necessary. In fact, it can happen with a stranger that you don't know. Because you people agree to do a particular thing, you can agree with him. But Dotuche happens in a relationship, so relationship is necessary. because the object need to be observed over time, and both of them are committed to one another. The goal for each of them, why do people do either of the actions, to agree with someone or to place your heart on someone? For Cheku, is maybe to gain something that is temporal, like money, to achieve a goal together, both good or bad. Dotuche mainly is to gain help, to gain salvation, is also for safety of your future or destiny. And burial is also an important event in Yala. So you place your heart on someone you believe will give you a proper burial. These are some of the words that people interviews said in reference to these variables. The kind of human being involved as object, it could be anybody known or unknown to you. But Dotuche, not just anybody. Someone you know, could be a wife, your relation, a child, a friend, and or your father. Before you do it, it's another variable. What do you need to know before you agree with someone or you place your heart on someone? These are what people say that are important to this variable. For Dotuche, someone you know will not fail you, will not run away from you, and so on and so forth. Then for Cheku, not because of relative or friend, but what you did that is right or wrong, and not because of beauty. I will not do so, but some people may agree with other people because of what is not right. But this speaker is saying that he will not do so. He only agree with somebody for what is right. Other things that are involved for Dotuche, when you place your heart on somebody, there's assurance, there's hope. When it is betrayed, you don't place your heart again, or even if you do, it takes time. And once you place your heart, you love the person or the object. In conclusion, based on this study, and to enhance quality of translation, we propose that the steps for translating key terms be adjusted as follows. First, you study the meaning of the term in the source text or in the mediating language. Two, you compare with similar words in the source text or mediating language. Three, you write a list of possible solutions or related words in the target language. You study the words in the list in the receptor language, not just writing. You have to study this word that are possible solution. Then you choose the most appropriate and you test your choice again. In studying the words in the list in the receptor language, one could ask, how and when is each related word used and understood by the speakers? What comes to their mind when the word is heard? What are the inferences that are encouraged or invoked by each of the terms? This will help the translators determine the best terms or expression to choose, which will contribute to the quality of Bible translation in the receptor language. Thank you.